Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent English with Podcast. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Alan. We're excited to be with you again today.
This podcast is all about helping you improve your English listening and speaking skills through engaging conversations. We believe that learning English shouldn't be boring. By listening to natural conversations on various topics, you'll pick up new vocabulary, improve your understanding of everyday English, and gain the confidence to speak yourself.
Today's topic is something we can all probably relate to: social media addiction. We'll be discussing the pros and cons of social media and how it can sometimes influence our lives in negative ways. We'll also be sharing some of our own experiences and stories we've heard from listeners.
Along the way, you'll learn some key vocabulary words related to social media addiction. Pay close attention to these words, and don't hesitate to look them up later if needed.
Here are some of the words we'll be covering: scrolling, notification overload, FOMO, fear of missing out, selfie obsession, virtual validation, filter dependency. To make things even more interesting, we'll be joined by special guests throughout the episode. Each guest will share their personal perspective on social media addiction and what it means to them.
So, get ready to listen, learn, and maybe even recognize some of your own social media habits in today's episode.
Okay, Sophie, let's dive into those vocabulary words we mentioned earlier.
Great idea, Alan.
First up, we have scrolling. This is what we do when we endlessly swipe through our social media feeds, looking at posts, pictures, and videos. It's almost like reading, but without stopping at any one thing for too long.
Exactly. Another word we'll hear is notification overload. This describes the feeling of being overwhelmed by constant alerts and updates from social media apps. It can be very distracting and make it hard to focus on other things.
Have you ever felt that, Sophie? Like your phone is buzzing all the time?
All the time. It can be so tempting to check every notification, but it definitely breaks my concentration.
Absolutely. Next, we have FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out. This is the feeling of anxiety or worry that you're missing out on something exciting happening in other people's lives as portrayed on social media.
FOMO is a big one, especially for younger people. We see all these perfect pictures and fun outings, and it can make us feel like our own lives are boring.
It's important to remember that social media is often a highlight reel, not a reflection of reality. The next word is selfie obsession. This describes the excessive focus on taking and posting selfies, which are self-portraits usually taken with a phone camera.
Yeah, some people are definitely obsessed with getting the perfect selfie and the most likes. There's nothing wrong with taking selfies, but it's important to have a healthy balance. The next two words are related: virtual validation and filter dependency.
Virtual validation is the feeling of needing approval or validation from others online, such as through likes and comments.
And filter dependency describes relying heavily on filters that alter your appearance in photos. These filters can create unrealistic beauty standards.
Exactly. Social media can be a great way to connect with others, but it's important to be aware of these potential downsides.
We definitely agree. Our first guest today is Sarah, a college student who's here to talk about her experience with social media addiction. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Sophie. Thanks for having me.
So, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about how social media has impacted your life?
Sure. Social media was great at first. I loved connecting with friends and seeing what everyone was up to. But then, I started to notice I was spending hours just scrolling mindlessly. It was like I was stuck in a loop, refreshing my feeds over and over again.
Wow, that sounds like a struggle. Did you feel any negative effects from this?
Absolutely. I would get notification overload, and my phone would constantly be buzzing. I had major FOMO, always worried I was missing out on something. It even affected my sleep because I'd stay up late scrolling instead of doing my homework.
It sounds like you were experiencing some classic symptoms of social media addiction. What did you do to overcome it?
I realized I needed to take control. I deleted some social media apps from my phone and set time limits on the others. I also started focusing on real-life activities like spending time with friends in person and pursuing hobbies.
That's fantastic, Sarah. It's important to find that balance. Did you notice a difference after making those changes?
Huge difference. I felt so much more productive and less stressed. I started getting better sleep and focusing more on my studies. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it.
Thanks for sharing your story, Sarah. That was really inspiring.
Now let's listen to a conversation between two friends, Emily and David, who are catching up at a coffee shop. See how many of our vocabulary words you can hear them use.
Hey David, so sorry I'm late. My phone kept blowing up with notifications and I got stuck in a scrolling vortex.
No worries, I just got here myself. Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes I feel like I spend half my life glued to my phone.
Lately I've been having some major FOMO. Everyone on social media seems to be having these amazing adventures and I just feel like I'm stuck in the same routine.
It's easy to fall into that trap, but remember, social media is just a highlight reel. People only post the best parts of their lives.
You're right. Maybe I need to take a break from all the filters and see the real world for a change.
That's a great idea. Maybe we could go for a hike this weekend, get some fresh air and disconnect.
Love that. I also need to stop obsessing over selfies. There's so much more to life than getting the perfect picture.
Exactly. Social media can be fun, but it's important to find a balance. Maybe we could set some phone-free times during the day?
Perfect. No more FOMO or notification overload. Just catching up with friends in person, like the good old days.
Sounds like a plan. Now, how about we actually focus on this conversation and enjoy our coffee?
Agreed. Phones away.
So, how many of our vocabulary words did you catch in that conversation? Did you hear Emily mention scrolling vortex, David talk about the highlight reel, and both of them discuss FOMO and the need for a balance?
Exactly. This conversation perfectly illustrates some of the challenges and solutions related to social media use.
Now, for our second guest interview, we have David, a social media marketing consultant. David, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Alan. Happy to be here.
David, you work in the social media world, but do you think it can sometimes be a double-edged sword?
Absolutely. Social media is a powerful tool for connection and communication, but it's important to be mindful of how we use it. There's a fine line between staying connected and becoming consumed by it.
Can you elaborate on the positive aspects of social media?
Sure, social media allows us to stay in touch with friends and family who are far away. It can also be a great platform for learning new things, discovering new interests, and finding communities of like-minded people.
Those are all great points. But what about the potential downsides, as you mentioned?
Social media can lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness if we rely solely on online interactions for connection. The constant comparison to others' seemingly perfect lives can also contribute to low self-esteem and anxiety.
That virtual validation you mentioned earlier can be a real trap.
Exactly. People can become addicted to likes and comments, seeking external validation instead of focusing on their own sense of worth.
So how can we achieve a healthy balance with social media?
Be intentional about your usage. Set time limits and don't be afraid to turn off notifications. Focus on real-life connections and prioritize face-to-face interactions.
Great advice, David. Social media can be a valuable tool, but it's important to use it consciously and not let it control our lives.
Before we wrap up, let's listen to another short conversation that highlights some of the key points we discussed.
Here are two colleagues, Maria and Daniel, chatting during their lunch break.
Oh, I just spent the last hour scrolling through social media and feel like I accomplished nothing.
Been there, done that. Social media can be a real-time suck.
Exactly. And then there's the FOMO. Everyone seems to be having so much fun, and I'm just stuck here at work.
Don't fall for the highlight reel, Maria. Social media is just a curated version of people's lives.
You're right. Maybe I need to set some phone boundaries and focus on getting things done today.
Absolutely. And hey, how about we grab coffee after work for a real-life catch-up? No filters or virtual validation needed.
Love that idea. See you then.
See how that conversation touched on several of our key points. From feeling overwhelmed by scrolling to recognizing the FOMO trap and prioritizing real-life connections.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world of social media. We hope you learned some new vocabulary and gained some valuable insights.
As we discussed, social media can be a double-edged sword. It offers amazing possibilities for connection, communication, and information, but it also has the potential to become a negative influence in our lives.
The key takeaway is to be mindful and intentional about your social media usage. Here are some key points to remember.
Set boundaries. Limit your time spent on social media and turn off notifications to avoid distractions.
Focus on real-life connections. Prioritize face-to-face interactions with friends and family.
Beware of FOMO. Don't compare your life to the curated highlights you see on social media.
Seek validation from yourself. Build your confidence and self-esteem independently of online approval.
Enjoy the real world. Disconnect from your phone and experience life in all its richness.
Remember, social media is a tool, and like any tool, it's up to us to use it responsibly.
We hope this episode empowered you to take control of your social media habits and create a healthier relationship with technology.
Thanks for listening. Join us again next time for another episode of Fluent English with Podcast.